Good morning. We're just getting ready. Good morning, everybody. We're just about to start in about a minute. For those watching us on our social media and eTurbo News, you can still join us. Just simply go to worldtourismevent.com and you find the ICTP event listed. Click on it and sign up, and you will get a Zoom link to join us live. Otherwise, stay tuned. We're going to be starting in about a minute or two. Thank you. Oh, Jeffrey, are you better? I see you twice now. Jeffrey, are you going to be using this one? This looks good.
Yeah, I'm using this one. Can you hear me?
Yeah, so let me kick you out of, okay, you're already out. Okay, we can hear you fine now. Okay, perfect. Okay, let me just test eTurbo News real quick and we can get started. eTurbo News and we can get started. Okay, we're live. Okay. I think we can just have a few more people coming in, and Dimitri is going to help us to get people coming in. And let's go.
I can't hear you, Thomas.
Okay, you should be able to hear me now. Can you hear me?
Very, very softly. Hardly hear you at all. I'll get closer.
Well, that shouldn't be the case because it's on maximum volume here. It must be. Walter, can you hear me well?
Loud and clear.
Okay, so it's got to be Jeffrey's phone. Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
Good morning, Jens. Thanks for joining us in 1 in the morning where you are.
Yeah. Hi, Jürgen. Hi, Jeffrey.
Hi, Jens. Hi, Walter.
Hi, Jeff. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Good to see
Good.
you.
You look well. Good to see you too.
Okay, so let's. Hello and good morning. My name is Jürgen Steinmetz from eTurbo News and World Tourism Network in Honolulu. And we'll be starting our event in just about 50 seconds here. And we're going to mute everyone so we don't have all this background noise. And then if you are speaking, just unmute yourself and everything should be clear. We're going to open up after the event for questions. So if you have questions or anything else, of course, you can type it in the chat room, but better even, we like to see you and like to hear from you directly. Raise your hand virtually. You can do this and just clicking on the reaction button on the bottom of your screen, and you find this yellow hand you can raise. So if you do this, then we can see this here and make sure we give you the microphone. I will also get Jeffrey to be a co-host. So Jeffrey, you can then actually see who's raising the microphone if this is okay.
Yeah, if I can hear.
All right, ready to go. Good morning, everybody. My name is Jürgen Steinmetz, joining you from World Tourism Network in Honolulu. With us today in live stream is eTurbo News, livestream.travel, our social media network, and some of our partners are joining us this morning, this afternoon, this evening, wherever you are. I'm in Honolulu. It's 8 in the morning here. And our co-host, Professor Jeffrey Lipman, is in Brussels, and it's 8 in the evening where he is. And we're going to have some exciting news for, in addition to the World Tourism Network, we're going to relaunch ICTP. It's going to be a different ICTP than the ICTP you may remember, and Jeffrey will explain all of this. For those that don't know what the World Tourism Network is, you'll find our information on WTN.travel. Just go to WTN.travel, or if you're in any of our websites, just click on the link for WTN.travel, and you will see World Tourism Network is a fairly new organization. We only started in December. And out of the rebuilding.travel discussion we have been hosting since March of 2020. All of us are tourism professionals and in 128 countries coming together to see how we can rebuild the travel and tourism industry. Today, I see a lot of our friends and regulars on board, and this is always nice to see. I see Jens, after a special welcome. We just actually announced him as a hero, and those that missed our hero event yesterday where we honored our heroes, you can find it now on our YouTube channel, or go to livestream.travel and you can watch it again. And Jens is one of them. He's joining us at 1 in the morning from Thailand. We also have our friend, Dr. Walter Memzevi in South Africa, who's been with us from the very beginning. You may know him as the former Minister of Tourism from Zimbabwe. And of course, we have Gisao here in Honolulu, and her passion is climate change and renewable energy, so she fits right in here. And we have Apollinari Tyro, and he is one of the executives and ambassadors for the African Tourism Board in Tanzania. And I see many, many more names. We have Max Haberstroh in Germany. He just wrote a very inspiring report we published on eTurbo News just yesterday. Look it up. And so without further ado, Jeffrey asked me to show a video. So I'm going to try to see if we can do this before we give the microphone to Professor Lipman in Brussels. So let me click on the video.
Hi, I'm happy to welcome you as well. I want to do 3 things. First, I want to lay out the framework of the new ICTP as we've conceived it. Secondly, I want to explain why we've recreated it. And thirdly, I want to show how we would hope it will operate going forward. The new ICTP, the International Climate and Tourism Partners, is an SDG 17 cooperative agreement between the World Tourism Network and Sunex Malta. WTN is the online community established by Jürgen a year ago, and thanks to his outstanding broadcasting, a must-go-to news-focused medium. Sunex Malta is a not-for-profit EU-based NGO, established as a legacy to my friend and mentor, the late Maurice Strong, climate and sustainability trailblazer half a century ago. We are happily partnered with the government of Malta, and we're advancing climate friendly. I won't show slides. And by the way, I like everything you said except that bit where you said you're going to cut out some of the things I say. I'm not so keen on that.
Okay, we're going to hear it twice then, but I'm sure we get it all together. Okay, let's go live here. Okay, Jeffrey, go ahead. Let me put you on the spot here too. Okay.
Is that okay? Can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Okay, I want to do 3 things. I want to lay out the framework of the new ICTP. I want to explain why we've recreated it, and I want to try to show a little bit about how it will operate. What we have put together is what we call an SDG 17 cooperative agreement. That's a framework of agreements under the Sustainable Development Goals between WTN and SunX Malta, the not-for-profit organization that I run in partnership with the government of Malta. And as you know, WTN is the online community, and thanks to Thomas's outstanding broadcast, it's now become one of the recognized news-focused medium. And SunX Malta was established as a legacy for the late Maurice Strong, my friend and mentor for 25 years, who's basically the architect of the UN Sustainable Development Goal and Paris Climate Agreement framework. He put that together starting in 1972, 50 years ago. Maurice Strong was talking about climate change being existential. And SunX Malta is designed to carry that philosophy of Maurice Strong forward. We're trying to set up what I'm calling an activist organization. And I want to think it's more aligned with the spirit of Greta Thunberg than, say, the spirit of UNWTO or WTTC. Our position with the new ICTP, which stands for the International Climate and Tourism Partners, so we've introduced the climate concept within our framework. The idea is that it will become an activist organization which says, look, we're in full agreement with the general broad direction that the industry has been moving in on this issue, including the most recent Glasgow Declaration. We're absolutely supportive of that direction for the industry, but we think that the science and what's happening on the ground suggests that you have to go a lot further, a lot faster. So we will be pushing what SunX Malta has called its Dash to Zero, which is very much like the Race to Zero, except instead of looking for net carbon neutral by zero by 2050, we want to see it by 2030. And by 2050, we think our entire industry should be able to get out of producing greenhouse gases completely. And the reason why we think that is because if you look at what's happening in the world around, we've already used 1.2 degrees of the Paris 1.5 in 5 years since 2015. And the UN's own data says we're headed for 3 to 5 degrees between 2050 and 2030, 2050 and 2000 and 2100. The World Meteorological Organization has suggested that at the present rate, we'll hit 1.5 degrees within 5 years. And we're seeing the results. Everybody on this call has been reading about the extremes of weather. Not just bad weather, but horrendous weather. The floods in Europe, in Germany and in Belgium, the fires in California, the hurricanes in the Caribbean, and on and on and on. They're more intense and they're harder, they're tougher, they're more damaging, and they decimate traditional travel and tourism patterns. So by collaborating between the substantive work that we're doing in SunX Malta, which is basically to be advocating climate-friendly travel linked to the Sustainable Development Goals and the Paris 1.5, and the broadcasting capacity of the World Tourism Network, we think we can multiply our capacity to get the message across a lot faster. We think, and a lot more seriously, we also think that the message is a tough message. We're not, having been inside WTTC, UNWTO, and IATA, I understand a little bit that these organizations have to operate at the rate of their slowest member. That's how membership organizations function. And we're not constrained by that. We can look at the science, we can look at what's happening on the ground, we can listen to tomorrow's next generation. And we believe that it's going to be necessary to make some very radical changes. We think that, for example, sustainable aviation fuel has to become widely supported by the industry and by the fossil fuel companies. We think that you should be spending money on research into clean energy, governments, and not spending money on new prospecting for fossil fuel. There's a whole range of things that we will be looking for and supporting and working openly with others to do things. Now, another point that I want to make is we're not going to be focused on the developed countries. We're going to focus on the developing countries, small island and developing states, Africa specifically, because it's where the biggest challenge and the biggest problems are going to be. And we're not going to be focused on the big companies whose interests are all aligned in WTTC and then with them UNWTO and a whole host of other people. We're going to focus on the small and medium entities who are the ones who have less capacity to do anything. We're hoping to create some sort of a marketplace that involves consumers. We think that there's a framework where tourism companies, hotels, tour operators, restaurants who agree with our philosophy hold out for those customers who agree with this as well. And we're convinced that the next generation, all the young people, they support what I've been trying to outline to you today. So we'll be producing this organization as a membership organization. People will get an electronic membership card. They'll pay a very small amount annually, enough to allow us to build a small organization. And I'm talking more about 20 euros or 50 euros than 200 or 500 or 3,000 that you have to pay to be an affiliate at UNWTO. And we'll bring in companies and communities at around the 100, 250 euro. And we'll run it with a small group of young people, many of whom are going through the diploma course that I'm running at SUNEX and the Institute of Tourism Studies in Malta. And we discovered they're smart, they're bright, they're committed, they're looking to do work in this field, and they feel it's purposeful. They feel they have a passion about it. So we're going to be bringing climate-friendly travel communities and companies together with climate-friendly travelers, travel consumers. And with Thomas behind it and myself behind it, we've roped in what some people call the usual suspects to be part of our core thinking group. Alain Saint-Ange, Walter Mazembe, Bea Broda, and Vijay Punasamy have all agreed to become part of this. And it being World Tourism Day today, we've decided to launch it today. We're putting out a press release saying that we are supporting the Glasgow Declaration, but with a development variant, like the Delta variant of COVID. We're saying we're going to focus on the developing states and the small island states, and we're going to bring them to the table in support of climate-friendly travel. So Thomas, that was what I was going to present in the video, a lot more smoothly and with some nice slides that I've spent a ridiculous amount of time doing. But I hope I've got the message across, and we'd like to have people discuss it, ask questions, join us, work with us. It's an open architecture organization, and So we will rely very much on getting some smart, bright young people to do a lot of the grunt work on this. And they communicate so well, and they use social media so much better than we do. And we expect to see a strong presence on social media, and of course, a strong presence through ETN and Thomas's news media platforms.
Thank you very much, Jeffrey. And for those that are watching us on eTurbo News and our platform, we will be playing this video in full with all the graphics at the end of the session. So if you stay on after we say goodbye on eTurbo News, you will be able to see this, and later on you will also see it. You will see the graphics. So Jeffrey, maybe if that's okay, we can open up the floor for questions or comments. Maybe we can start.
Absolutely.
Maybe we can start, and I'd love to put him on the spot with Walter, who's actually part of it. And Walter, would you mind taking the lead?
Well, thank you very much, Jürgen. Let me preface my remarks by wishing everybody a happy World Tourism Day. And what a pleasure to celebrate it with a very distinguished tourism practitioner in the name of Geoffrey Lippmann, whom I remember very fondly. The hand-holding that he did to me and Zambia, leading to the successful hosting of the 20th session UNWTO General Assembly in the destination of the Victoria Falls. So Geoffrey is a very passionate African in that respect, whilst everybody did not believe at the time, he actually believed in the capacity of those two Southern African states at the time to put up an excellent and arguably one of the most successful General Assemblies in the history of General Assemblies. And he started sharing his ideas and vision about climate change at that time, which was a very remote idea at the time. Climate change is not one of the most easily understood subjects, as you would imagine, and it needed his academic competence in terms of packaging it to the extent where we can understand it as we do now today. So I read a very clear message on the creation of a coalition of climate-friendly enterprises, companies, and climate-friendly consumers with the developmental variants. And of course, there's going to be a lot of work underpinning this. And it is very essential, obviously, that a platform like WTN begin to lend itself in terms of amplifying the message going forward. And we need to recruit the right people who can get the message across. Ahead of us, obviously, is a World Conference in London on climate change. We should be there, we should be visible with the agenda as outlined by Geoffrey. Even if we are not present physically, I think we will be present virtually to push the message. So I'm very happy to associate myself, my own legacy in tourism, built over 12 years as Minister of Tourism for Zimbabwe, and to lend my weight behind this concept. It's a very frightening statistic that Geoffrey has shared with us, that we have already utilized 1.2 degrees of the Paris 1.5 degrees since 2015. If anyone doesn't get frightened by that, what it means is really what we see translated in natural disasters. I never knew that we would witness, for example, floods in Europe, as we saw it in Germany, in Belgium, the perennial occurrence of hurricanes in the Caribbean, something that we put as a focal area of discussion during our time in the UNWTO. All of us, Geoffrey, Taleb Rifai, myself, Alan, and others, to the extent where we themed, I think, one of the World Tourism Days along the lines of tourism and natural disasters. So if anything, that is going to change the profile of tourism as we know it going forward into the future. It is going to be this aspect of what we refer to as natural disasters, but something that we can actually control by our own recalibration of how we conduct ourselves going forward in terms of mitigating the dangers of climate change. So I'm very happy to associate myself with this partnership, the International Climate and Tourism Partners, as enunciated by Geoffrey, and we'll be sending the message globally starting from today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Can I, Thomas, could I just say, in response to that, that very nice set of comments by Walter, he was a great tourism minister. And if it hadn't been for his vision, there would not have been any General Assembly, which he not only persuaded UNWTO to do for the first time ever, to put these two countries together, he persuaded his own president, who wasn't an easy man to persuade.
If you could drag Robert Mugabe to a table, then you can drag anybody to a climate change apostleship.
Yeah, I won't tell the story because it's worth it. When you took me to meet your president, and he asked me, he said, "How is my tourism minister? Do you remember?"
Yeah.
That was his first comment. "How is my tourism minister?" And I said, "Well, he's okay, not so good, but he's okay."
Yeah. Good memory. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you for those generous comments.
But I have to say, this was one of the most spectacular General Assemblies I attended. And I still remember everything that happened, going back and forth over the bridge between Zambia and Zimbabwe all the time. No passports needed, it was very smooth. And yeah, we had a great time. I think it was an event. It was so far from what now. I've been to a number of General Assemblies. This was the best one I've been to, at least. So, but Dr. Robert Langport raised his hand, and we have him on the screen. I know who you are, but maybe you can just introduce yourself briefly, and you had a question or a comment.
I don't know if I have to say to you good morning. I am in Cordoba, Spain, and it's 8 p.m. For us. First, I want to be very happy with all of you in this World Tourism Day. Okay, I remember almost 45 or 46 years ago when Robert Lonati asked me to take this file and to work on different documents to try to elaborate themes for this Tourism Day. And it was a very interesting job. I want also to say hello to Walter, because as you know, I was during almost 1 year, one year and a half, one of the experts of the European Commission into your country. I know very well, I love your country, and I am very happy to see you. What I want to say is very easy,
Thank you.
Robert Lonati asked me from the beginning of the decades of the 80s to take in charge the file of environment. And from the beginning, then Peter Shackelford, when I left, was in charge of this file. But from the beginning, I say, well, we have to be careful because there is a big problem, is this climate change. And little by little was the idea that, we have to find some new concepts. When I left WTO, I was to the Blue Plan of UNEP. And right here, I was working with these people for the Mediterranean. And I was very lucky to work with the team of the Prime Minister of Norway, Britland, and to work on tourism. And remember, I was publishing a book on tourism and environment, and I was one of the first to say we have to find a way to do with tourism in order to have the less impact, on nature, on culture. And I was using the word sustainable tourism. I was one of the first to use this word. Well, since, a lot of things were occurring, and people are now saying that, we are not working very well on this field. 10 years ago, there was I have the document right here, in Évora, in Portugal, a big meeting, concerning sustainable tourism. And what they say, two things. They say, first, it is one of the sector where almost no measure were done on the impact of tourism on climate change. They say, for example, they say 3-4%, but other people in Australia and the impact on it is on this climate change. Second, they say we have not to speak about climate change. We have to do something. We have to improve not only our research instrument, but we have to push for a new initiative. And in Évora, it was says that, how can we compensate the carbon? How can we develop initiative? How can we give money to this new initiative? I am finishing now, a work, on this issue. It is in French and Spanish, because they asked me that. And also, I just present my third dissertation on this, on the future of tourism. And really, I send a questionnaire to almost 200 experts in the world, mainly French-speaking and Spanish-speaking people. And I found that, there is no real consciousness about this issue of sustainability and climate change. So what I ask, but I don't want to speak too much, I ask that we take initiative, and bravo, Geoffrey, my old friend Geoffrey, we have to take initiative. We don't have to just to speak. We have to push our government, to push the enterprise, to push our organization to take initiative and to do something against this climate change. Thank you very much to all.
Thank you very much for your comments and thanks for attending. And yes, I know it's evening. It's hard to believe because I'm sitting here with my coffee. But but I wanted to just say hello real quick, if this is okay. And Jens Threnhardt, he is joining us from Bangkok. And Jens was recently also appointed as or awarded as one of our heroes at World Tourism Network, and is involved with the Mekong project for many years in Southeast Asia. And we had a really good session, and I'm really amazed of all these things Jens is involved in. Jens is a German Canadian, and we actually figured out he's from the same city I'm from in Germany, from Düsseldorf. So that makes him even more important. So I want to put you on the spot, Jens, and to say hello, if that's okay.
Thank you, Jürgen. And first of all, happy World Tourism Day to everybody. I think it's a very important day, especially during this COVID time. I want to say hello to Jeffrey and Walter and other people that I know from UNWTO meetings and other meetings. And obviously Jeffrey, I think, is almost like everybody's mentor, but I'm proud to call Jeffrey my mentor as well. And He's been giving me advice, I think back in 2008 when I was with the Canadian Tourism Commission, and when he actually came to Vancouver when I did an event called the Canada eConnect conference, which was the first e-tourism conference in Canada at that time, 2007, when we planned it. Actually, it was 2007, I believe. And Jeffrey came, and Jeffrey said, well, I need to have a reason to come. I want to come to Vancouver, but you got to give me a reason to come. So I said, well, we have this award. Why don't you just give out an award? And so long story short, we came up with this award, which was actually and Jeffrey, correct me if I'm wrong, it was the e-tourism climate change award. And I think, this was 2007. And then Jeffrey was able to get it sponsored by Microsoft, so that the head of tourism for Microsoft came up from Seattle, Eric Basha at that time. And we had a beautiful award ceremony at the IMAX Theater, which was together with, partnered with a foundation that was run by the Miss Canada organization. So we had a few Miss Canadas there. There was another motivation for Jeffrey to actually come. I remember. Yeah, it's the only thing you remember. But yes, I think I just wanted to make that point because, back in 2007, obviously, Jeffrey already had climate change in his heart, and he inspired me that this is something important. Before Al Gore put his movie out, Inconvenient Truth. So I think, obviously inspired by Maurice Strong, who I also had the pleasure of meeting when I lived in Beijing, and we had breakfast many times. Actually, it's funny, Maurice Strong never talked about climate change. He only talked about how bad Jeffrey is. So Walter, you don't have to feel bad that Jeffrey comes to your country and talks bad about you. There are people that also talk bad about Jeffrey. But I think this was actually a very, very beautiful event. And fast forward now to the Mekong region, Jeffrey and I have been working to see also how we can bring the SunX program into the Mekong region. Jeffrey joined our Mekong Tourism Advisory Group and started an expert group on SDGs and climate change. We have our Destination Mekong Summit coming up on actually October 21 and 22, and Jeffrey will actually lead a panel with a student and a CEO of tourism organizations in the Mekong region to discuss this issue of climate change. So I will stop here, but I think, obviously developing regions like the Mekong region and island nations, I think definitely need to have that support and put measures in place to really see how tourism can contribute to make sure that climate change, as Walter put it so nicely, these natural disasters will get worse and worse. So I think obviously there's things we can control and there's other things we cannot control. But I think if we focus on the things that we can control, I think we can all make a contribution. Thank you for giving me the floor, Jürgen. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Jens, for being part of us early in the morning, and we really appreciate it. Professor Snežana in Serbia, of course, everyone who has been attending any of our events, Professor Snežana, who I call Snow White, because she allowed me to do this because I have such a hard time with Serbian names. She's the head of our educational forum, and she wanted to say something. She asking me here why I turned off her video. And Professor, I did not turn off your video. I wouldn't even know how to do that. But you're welcome to turn on your microphone, even without video. Most of us know how you look like, and we love to see you. But if we can't, just go ahead and unmute yourself if you don't mind.
Hello, this is Thomas. I want to say hello to all the people here in this meeting. I'm in the top of the list, but I'm not the host of the meeting. I'm just have been clicked it 1 hour earlier. That's why I'm in the top of the list. So for your next meeting, be early. You'll be on the top of the list.
Oh, no, you're everyone, when you sign into the system, you're always
Everyone's.
top of the list. It's just
that's
you, but welcome.
okay.
No problem. We
Oh,
want you to be on top of the list. That is
Oh,
not an issue. But let's
okay.
go back to Professor Schnitzana. I know your camera is not working, but can you unmute yourself? Do you hear us? Maybe there is a problem. Okay. Well, we cannot hear you. I see both your camera and your microphone seems to be muted. And you said you cannot unmute yourself. Okay, there may be an issue on your computer, but it's definitely not me. We would love to hear from you. So we'll do this next time, or when you get it fixed, just raise your hand or just interrupt and we give you the microphone right away. So, and anyone who wanted to add to this conversation or have any comments, simply raise your hand. We love to hear from you. And we have Thomas Boffel. He is raising his hand. So go ahead, Thomas.
Yes, hello.
Where you're from and where you're calling us from, please.
I'm calling from Frankfurt. It's like 10 o'clock in the evening. And I'm the founder of a company called Hitchhiker. We're doing airfare since like 30 years. And we're coming from the travel trade more than from the airline side, perhaps. And for us, that we are aggregators, and we are a medium layer between. If you want to build a website for flight, you would use something like what we provide to make your life a bit easier. So, but for us, it's always the question: how would we implement? Where would we have to start? Where would we have to fill fields in the databases? What are the processes that we need? Maybe have to lay the fundamentals. I have no idea, and I would be happy to get more information about that. What comes along with this CO2 train?
Jeffrey, back to you.
I don't think Thomas, not this Thomas, but the other Thomas, I don't think our intention is to become data collectors or data providers. There are plenty of people in the travel and tourism sector, including all of the big booking engines. They're starting to, well, they're certainly collecting green information with their organization Travelist. And people like Amadeus have got lots of data they're collecting, and the airlines are collecting data on climate-related issues. And we can't compete with that, and nor do we need to or want to. They're doing, very good data collection. Our interest is much more in building communities of interest. We want to see those people who feel as businesses or as communities that they want to do something to respond to climate change. And I go back to something that Jens said. It's not about how you respond. It's not only about how you respond by reducing your carbon for 2030 or 2050. It's how you respond if you're a Caribbean island to the next set of hurricanes, or if you're somebody where there's desertification. Is there anything that you can do to respond to that? Because you need to have resilience now, not in 20 years' time. So I think we can work as a community to give good practice examples. We're working with a group in Germany who Jens put me in touch with called Hotel Resilience. And they do an assessment of how exposed a travel and tourism company is to climate-related issues. They go into the data, which is not kept by tourism people, it's kept by people, by environment agencies, or national atmospheric agencies, or science groups, or those kind of people. They go into the data and they will take a hotel, this group, Hotel Resilience, and they will assess what's the likelihood of there being a forest fire? What's the likelihood of there being a flood? What insurance companies might provide insurance against that kind of thing. What could you do physically with your property? For example, if sea level is rising, should you be looking towards working with your government to put some fortifications or mangroves or whatever? We're much more concerned, Thomas, with actually doing things and making them happen and raising issues of concern. Here's an issue. In the UK, who are hosting the COP meeting, they have this absolutely outrageous air passenger duty. We all know it's a total farce. You pay the money for some sort of originally environment-related activity, and it goes into the central treasury to be used for anything. Well, why can't we all get together and tell Mr. Johnson that he should be using the air passenger duty for research into climate-friendly travel? So it's much more of a lobbying kind of activity, much more of a helping people find the right operational solutions. In our case, in Sunex Malta, we're training all these young people who can help companies as they look at these challenges. And so it's much more of that, Thomas, than trying to put data together.
Yeah, and but you brought up an interesting point, Thomas. Maybe we can talk off the record how we could possibly work together with what you're doing with World Tourism Network. So I would definitely welcome that. And just feel free to contact me anytime. But thanks for your intervention. We have Colin Bidewell. I put the spotlight on him. He had a comment and a question, so maybe I thought it's easier for him to phrase it since his camera was on. So I just want to put you in the picture if that's okay. Colin.
That's okay. Hi, Jürgen. Great initiative and great series, etc. Hello, everyone. Colin Bardwell, just an independent management consultant from the UK. Yeah, we've seen a lot of movement, haven't we? Basically, I think in the sustainability space recently with Google and Travelist, obviously, that you just mentioned. I just wondered what the sort of the impact of the people who have got deep pockets on the whole agenda and influencing parts, certainly in consumer booking behaviours, because I guess it's consumers where the influence needs to happen. So what do we think the impact's going to be on people who have got the deep pockets, i.e. the big tech companies, compared to, I guess, any sort of community-based? It's just sort of because we seem to see a lot of activity certainly in the recent past from ESG type of initiatives, particularly with the big tech companies. I think you touched on it a little bit, basically. I just wondered if you wanted to expand on that, really.
Jeffrey, you have it?
Yeah, excuse me if I'm going to sound a bit cynical. They'll have to convince me that what they're not doing is looking after the big tech companies. You know, my historical observation is that the big tech companies have dabbled in actually delivering on issues around sustainability and climate change, and much more used their power to do consumer surveys, to perhaps support the lobbying with data. I think they could do a lot more in operational terms, and they could certainly do a lot more in, for example, building a fund that could help the poorest, the developing states and the island states. I think that would be something that they have lots of money, not just the ones in travel, you know, Amazon, all of those people. There's an equity issue around this. The ones who are going to suffer the most are the poorest, the ones who can least handle it the most. So I think that if the big tech companies were to really come into play and maybe create a fund and use that fund to help small communities and island states to shore up their response to the climate challenge. And big money, not just small amounts, but, you know, they make serious amounts of money. They could change the paradigm on funding within the tourism sector. But I'm not going to hold my breath expecting it to happen.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Let's go from London back to where I am at, right here in Hawaii. Gisao has also been with us almost from the very beginning. She is an Iranian German lady living here in Hawaii. And I met her actually for coffee not too long ago and really enjoyed to exchange some ideas and to learn more about each other. Giselle, welcome. Aloha. And please unmute yourself.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, as Jürgen said, I am in Honolulu and my passion and work is sustainable operations. My background is engineering, so I am involved in construction and also green building and green operation as well. So I think they all are connected. And with this, the new idea that Jeffrey is bringing, I agree with what you said previously with the data collecting, and also Thomas mentioned that he is doing data collecting. So I think when we are focusing on areas that are not supplied with internet, which is the focus of the new organization with Africa, basically. Yeah. So we will have a lack of information, and I don't think that it's really needed to collect data. Being there, sensing the need of the community, it is will be much more effective to plan what is really needed in the locations, the different locations, because the continent is huge. Yeah, the need is huge, and there are so many different culture and people around that you cannot even collect any data information from them. So I think really being present, focusing on community needs, and of course everybody hopes for support, but I think that is for this program, specifically looking at data, I think that would not really address the need. And in general, if data collection is not always the answer, it's maybe helpful to get a direction, but remaining focused on the needs for each community, each area that we are working in, because of the differences. Yeah, I think that is really what we have to focus on. Also infrastructure, investing in infrastructure in a right way, and for the long-term impact, that is what tourism side of the sustainability can support the countries, yeah, to whatever plan we make, that they can take the benefits along the way for many, many years to come, and build upon that as changes will appear and come up.
Thank you very much. So Jeffrey, do you have any answers?
No, I agree. I agree. I'd like to know more about your coffee meeting that you and Giselle held.
Well, actually, go ahead, Jeffrey.
It will come at some point, Jeffrey. I can tell you that. That was a business meeting coffee, yeah, and it will come more about that, yes, and that is probably the place to it would be, I think, something that will match your ideas and the concept. Yes,
it's the only thing that Thomas doesn't have in his empire is a tourism dating agency. He's got all of the other pieces in there. This could be an important piece of it. No, I share your view. This is not about, we're not talking about doing studies with this new group or building databases. As I say, many people are doing that and doing it much better than we are. We think, like you said, it's going to be what happens in communities. And every community has a different challenge when it comes to responding to the climate, because the tourism, increasingly now people say the tourism has to be built on the ethos of the community, the culture of the community, the requirements of the community for the type of tourism that they want. And factored into that is the impact of climate change, and it will impact on each one differently. And all we hope to do is to provide a network of good information that will give them access to plenty of studies that are out there. I often say this, but I'll repeat it again. If you're a company in Hawaii and you're trying to do something to respond to climate change, it's quite likely that a company in Chile or a company in the Mekong have been doing something similar. Well, through this combination of the research capacity and support capacity that we have at SunX Malta, particularly with the young people that we're training now, and with Thomas's communication network, we must surely be able to bring better information, not necessarily data and statistics, but this is a really good solar panel system. This is a really good renewable energy system. And that there's so much information, it's hard for small and medium enterprises to find that information. So I think we can be a kind of electronic library for giving people good practice and mangroves. You've got mangroves somewhere in Thailand. There's a group of people working on how to strengthen mangroves because they form a barrier against flood surges.
Yeah.
It's that kind of a thing, and we don't know at this stage what we'll do. We just know that the climate issue is the pivotal issue. I keep saying, if we don't fix that, it's going to fix us.
Yes.
So we think that this combination of the research and support capacity that we have at SunX Malta and the broadcasting and communications capacity, which Thomas does as well as anybody in the tourism sector, pretty much better than most people. We think we can focus it on climate, and that will help to make a difference. And people like you have to become a part of it. We can't do it ourselves. We need to build a network of interested people.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, my impact about myself is less. That's why I joined World Tourism Network, to really work and see how organizations can join each other and give hand and really make sure that decisions are made based on needs, and based on the locality and environment. That is, I think, the most important part, to realize that what we do has to fit what is needed.
Thank you very much, Gisao. And let's now go to Professor Snežana in Serbia. I think I see her now, and also she has a microphone. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. I was listening very carefully, and then I remember that we had 30 years ago, we had a big conference about the climate change. And then I've heard some people from Sweden and Norway. They had a very interesting paper about the climate change, and they said in about 30 years, it was 1995, something like that. They said in about 30 years, it will be better to spend your summer holiday in Sweden and Norway than in Mediterranean, because the climate will change so fast, and climate will change like this, that in Mediterranean, it will be like in Sahara. In Yugoslavia at that time, it is going to be like Mediterranean countries. And in Norway and Sweden, it is going to be something in between. So I was thinking how it can be something in between on the northern part of Europe. Maybe in Balkan, it can be something in between or something like that. But I just wanted to say that this climate change, changing of the climate, is a really big issue. And we have to network, to be together, because there are so many changes in climate. For example, in Serbia this summer, we are really dying because of the temperature, which were 40, 42, 43 degrees centigrade, and we are not used on that. In winter, we use, our winters used to be half meter, 1 meter of snow, very cold, -20. Now we don't have winter, we don't have seasons actually. And because of that, this issue which Geoffrey gave us is very, very important. And I think that it is very important for us and for the tourist industry, because climate is a very big part of the tourism product. Because of a climate, we are traveling. And because of that, I just want to say I'm in. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Snezana. Geoffrey, any response?
Well, I agree entirely, and I'm so pleased that Professor Snezana is going to be part of this, because I've listened to her speak before on WTN, and she always has something important to say. So we will count you as part of the troops, and we'll be in touch with you soon.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Max Haberstroh, he's in Germany. He's a consultant and researcher, as far as I know. He's written an article for eTurbo News we just published, and he raised his hand, so I want to make sure I give him the microphone. Max,
thank you very
welcome.
much. Thank you very much, Jürgen. It's nice to hear and see you again, and especially it's nice to see and hear Geoffrey again. I missed that for quite a long time, even before Corona. Now, Geoffrey, I very much cheer your focus on investing in climate change research. I appreciate that very much, and I esteem that very important. Look at Corona, at the virus, at the pandemic. It took us in the West, in Germany, in the US, not too much time. Very quickly, actually, we were in developing effective vaccines against that virus. Now the research thing could be and should be also applied to towards the fighting or combating or whatever you call it, climate change. How do you also regard as essential any concrete steps and measures to teach us on how to live with the impact of climate change? Because I think that will keep us busy for many, many years to come. And how do you assess the degree of its origin? Is it mainly human-made or largely due to natural impact as it used to be in the past?
Well, Max, it's nice to see you. And to be honest with you, my view on the origins of climate change are pretty unimportant. I think the reality is that the scientists, the big scientists, they all say that it's human influence and that you can trace it. You can see the data that says since industrialization started and we started to pump coal and oil and gas fumes into the atmosphere, the amount of carbon, and it's not just carbon, that's another thing. Carbon is 75% of the greenhouse gases. The other 25% are sulfur and methane and nitrous compounds, and they're more damaging than carbon. It's just there's a hell of a lot more carbon, and it stays up there for an endless amount of time. I don't really think that there's a question anymore of what's caused it. People have caused it. Fossil fuel burning has caused it. Growth of populations has been a factor because we consume more and we demand more from production activities, which produces carbon, and carbon and other greenhouse gases produce a blanket around the earth. I may be sounding as if I'm not responding positively, and I want to respond positively, Max, because we've known each other a long time, and I know you're a thoughtful guy. I don't think we're going to be doing research in this organization. We're interested in action, operational actions that will help a small hotel in Botswana deal with a potential forest fire? For example, if they join ICTP, we will try to help them think that through and give them data, which SunX has got its research, and we've been building, sort of aggregating good information for the last 5 years. What we'll do is get people to look at it and to see which of it can be helpful to them. And it's a question of the UN system calls it adaptation. It means climate change is there, it's going to get worse, it's going to affect tourism. How can tourism companies and communities now take action which will reduce the impact of that? And that's what we think this new ICTP will help people to do.
I understand that pretty well, but Geoffrey, I was for a certain period of time, I was working a consultant of tourism in Madagascar. That was pretty long ago. And I think, and I remember that even in those times, people were very worried about the progress of wildfires in Madagascar to destroy the forest there. And they made gangs responsible for that. And the government actually, although at the time led by a very effective to be president, was not able to stop that. Now, when we are going to influence or to inspire SME companies to do something about that, that is pretty well. That is a little bit like the grassroots approach, I would say. But if we have it on from two times up, from top down and from bottom up, so as to include the governments, the responsible people, the decision makers, actually to stop just that doing. Don't you think these 2 points would be complementary to each other?
I do. I fully agree with you. I mean, we need to get the bottom of the pyramid, base of the pyramid, plugged into this activity, because I believe that the big organizations that are dealing with this, WTTC has got 200 big corporations. They're not going to deal with the small and medium enterprises, and the less so in the poorer countries and the small island states. And I think we can help there. But it's not just a question of motivating companies or communities. Yeah, we have to help give messages to governments. I mean, governments are pretty much seized of this issue now. And I think we will be talking to an open door if we go in with something which is constructive and positive and with creative ideas about how they can deal with these issues, not with kind of finger pointing or accusations, things of that kind. It's a question of how we put it together. But I agree with you, Max. It's not enough to do it at the bottom, because basically governments have all the money and they have the capacity to make the regulations, and they have the capacity to help people make changes by incentivizing them. You know, give people an incentive to put solar panels on the roof. We could argue that for tourism companies, and maybe they can't argue it for themselves as well as we can help them do it. And with Thomas's capacity, Jürgen's capacity to give a media light on this, that's quite a powerful weapon.
I agree to you. Thank you very much, Geoffrey.
And
Okay.
you've probably seen that Thomas doesn't shirk from being controversial.
Not really. So we have James Rusher, and I see there's Dr. Robert Langford had a comment or question. I don't know if you wanted to do it online. If anyone else wanted to contribute, we're running slowly out of time, so please raise your hand now. We will give you the floor. And if we don't hear from anyone else, we're going to give a question now to James Russell. James, go ahead.
Yes, thank you.
Let us know where you're from, also, please.
Certainly. Hi, I'm Jim Rocco from Washington, D.C. And it's actually quite interesting for me because for a very long time, and to some extent continuing. I've been involved in international environmental policy, and I've been to many a UN meeting and so forth as an NGO representative on sustainability and other things. And I became a tourist guide as just one of the arrows in my quiver, so to speak, about 8 years ago here in Washington and New York City. But I've also gone to some international tourist guiding conferences like the one in Tehran a few years ago, which I have many interesting stories about, by the way. So it's sort of inadvertent. I never expected that the tourist guiding side of my experience would really segue very much with the environmental experience, but it so happens that it has. So therefore, having said that, I am trying to think about how I might contribute to this. I want to point out one thing. One of the things I'm doing right now is I'm on the board of a NGO called the Integrative Strategies Forum here in the US, and it has been solicited to help out with a tourist guiding and plastics initiative through, some of you may have heard of it or not. It came out of Eco Forum, I guess, in Moscow, but it's being pitched by Eco Accord in the European context. So I have a specific interest in how we might deal with plastics. But my broader concern, and I will shut up in a minute, I promise you, because I'm still puzzling this out, the role of the tourist guide and how it all fits together. But one of my big concerns is the dangers of succumbing to a definition of resiliency, which is basically defeatism. So I fully endorse the previous comment. I think it's a question of top down, bottom up, because a community per se has no particular policy influence if you look at it in isolation. So the question is, how do you get the whole system together? And it's not only a question of moving New York City to Omaha, for example. It's a question how you can continue prevention or at least mitigation efforts that are integrated into what we're doing. So those are my interests. Having said that, then I have two specific obvious questions. What's the best way to get in touch with particularly Sun, Malta, and Jeffrey Lippman to continue this? Is there a particular contact person and address, number one? And number two, are you by any chance going to be able to make a list of participants in this meeting? To me, that would be very helpful. I don't know if you do that ordinarily or if you can do that. Would be helpful. So my questions are how to, continue this, follow up with this by my in particular getting in touch with Jeffrey Lippman and Sun Moulton and other people, and then maybe thinking about having a participants list of some sort.
Well, James, maybe before I give to Jeffrey to cut in there, ictp.travel is our website, and we will add this information. It hasn't been completed under the new concept yet, but our roof organization is World Tourism Network, WTN.travel, and you also find Jeffrey under Belgium and contact. We usually don't just give out participation lists, but we can do it depending on needs, possibly. It's also a database privacy issue sometimes.
Sure.
Together, and I would recommend, if you haven't joined a World Tourism Network yet, join us as a member. That is, a little bit different from ICTP now, but we're all together. And then, of course, we may have other options also to work with you. But back to Jeffrey.
Yeah, no, James, look, let's just communicate between us. It's not a question of having an address. You can get me if you go to thesunprogram.com. Most of my stuff is there, but glippman@gmail gets me, and we'll exchange to see where there could be areas of common interest. And when it comes to getting lists, Thomas, I'd be happy if you'd ask Jens if he could get me Miss Canada's address again.
All right. Okay. So we have two more people raising hands, and then we're going to come to a close probably after this. And we have Dr. Robert Lankwart, really put him on the spot. He had a question. And James, thank you very much for your intervention. Much appreciated.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. And let's go to Dr. Robert Langport real quick, and then we're going to go to Hans.
Very quick, yes. First, I want to say hello to James, because you know my mentor was not Maurice Strong, was Clark Gunn, and I know that he know him because he was working a long time in Washington. I got my American PhD with him. Well, I just say in the chat that research to fight climate change must not focus only on technologies. We need to work more on behavior, and we need also to teach all that in our school and university. There is only a few programs concerning that, you know, and I am amazed to see that, you know, the people are not really interested to develop program on educational program on these issues. And we have to do that, Geoffrey. You have to fight for that. And that is, thank you very much. It was a pleasure to, I have, right now, I just received the minutes of my conference in Marrakesh on tourism and climate change. If you are interested, I can send you that. And it is in French and in Spanish, you know, but I can do an effort and translate it in English for everyone. Thank you very much, Jürgen. Thank you very much, Geoffrey. Thank you to all.
Yeah, we'd be very interested in it. Just feel free to send. And if you don't have time to translate, we can try Google Translate it, make the best
Yes.
out of it.
I will send you that tonight. Thank you,
Thank you
Jürgen.
very much. We have Hans Friedrich. It sounds like he might be from Germany also, raising hands. Let us know where you're from and who you represent, please. Hans.
Yes, Jürgen, I'm not from Germany. I'm from the Netherlands, actually living in Malta. And
Oh,
I'm part
okay.
of Cenex Malta.
All right.
I'm working with Geoffrey as the registrar of the Registry of Climate-Friendly Travel. But in my previous life, I was a director of IUCN, a regional director. And of course, one of the things that really excites me about your recasting ICTP is the focus on Africa. We know that tourism and wildlife conservation have an awful lot together, as it were. Tourism has been the backbone of a lot of the wildlife conservation in Africa. And during COVID, when tourism all of a sudden stopped, it was a real disaster for a lot of the conservation activities. I think, as Geoffrey keeps telling us, climate change is like COVID on steroids. So I think working with Africa, working with African tourism companies and looking at how we can help them, on the one hand, prepare for what's coming their way for climate change, and on the other hand, thinking about the registry, getting them involved in actually taking climate change serious, as it were, and see how far they can deal with the issues is, I think, a very important issue. And I look forward to working with you on that.
Thank you very much, Hans. Much appreciated. Let's go to Akhilesh Dubey. Let us know where you're from. You had several really good comments you made in the chat room, and I'm glad you're coming on in person.
Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to speak. Sir, myself is Akhilesh Dubey. I'm from India, the city of Taj Mahal, Agra, and I work for Creative Travel as a general manager. And I'm very happy to associate, connect with your program. And it's very nice to see the climate, developing the idea of developing a climate-friendly, travel consumer and community. But here I would like to give a kind of insight. The global travel industry contribute only 8% of the greenhouse gases, and the majority of the greenhouse producer is the energy sector. So I think there is a global government's responsibility also to work on this climate issue hand in hand. Of course, the tourism industry is taking very good initiative and steps to reduce the carbon footprints globally at the destination, but at the destination, the infrastructural changes also will be, the need of the hour to operate the tours more sustainability. Because of the COVID, there's a huge awareness and a buzz towards the climate sustainability, save the planet, increase the green cover. So the travel consumers are very well aware, and they are also, you can observe the change in their needs and preferences and their demands toward the tour they are opting. So they are more, to sustainable or climate friendly travelers. So here, the government's role is also very important as far as we talk about the greenhouse gases, and climate control and all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Jeffrey, any comments on it?
Yeah, I think there's two dimensions here. One dimension is the big government activity on climate change. That's where the change is going to come, because governments have the power and they have the money and they have the right to govern. That's why they're called governments. And we aren't going to dabble in that because it's above tourism's pay scale, I think, personally. The issue is how the tourism sector responds, and it is responding. I've been inside, the big institutions are responding. You will see IATA, I believe, will improve its positioning on responding to climate change. You have this whole coalition behind the Glasgow movement. Tourism Declares, the future of tourism. Working with people like WTTC and some advanced tour operators, and they are doing things. We just think that there's something that can be done in that specific area of developing countries and small island developing states. Somebody just mentioned in Africa. And I think we have a capacity for staying clear of the big government activity. We can't make any difference to it. When the UK government and Mr. Carey decide how they're going to influence the future of the climate convention in Glasgow, we're like a flea on the back of an elephant. We're never going to influence it. But what we can do is help those vital companies in the tourism value chain. They say that 80% of the tourism activity is provided by SMEs, small and medium enterprises. They have to deal with these big problems without the knowledge and the support. And I think that's where ICTP can provide the best help. And working with Sunex Malta, and we've just listened to Hans, and Hans is one of the most knowledgeable people. We work together as colleagues, and he's building in the registry a place where committed companies can show what they're doing to committed consumers. Now we can find a way to harness that in ICTP. We can find a way for Thomas's World Tourism Network to broadcast that. So if you're a small company and you say, hey, I want to do this stuff, there's a way that you're going to get some mileage from the publicity and promotion that Thomas does with eTurbo News, or Sunex Malta does. It has a magazine called Exist, which goes out quite widely. And we can showcase committed small companies who want to do the right thing. In the end, we're all going to have to do the right thing, driven by regulation. Governments are going to regulate on, and they're doing it. They're regulating fossil fuel cars out of existence in Europe. You won't be able to do it in 2035. You won't be able to buy a fossil fuel car. And I think we can help people anticipate this and make that adjustment and give them good practice and generally do something in an important area of tourism that isn't being looked after by anybody else at this stage.
Thank you very much, Jeffrey.
Thank you so much.
We're going to get our very last question, and from Kuyanga, Angela, Martha, and I'm not going to pronounce your last name, but where you're from, and please, the microphone is yours.
Yes, I'm from Angola, talking from Luanda.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much. Really, the theme and the subject is very, very important, and mostly for us African, because our tourism rely on an environment. We do have a lot of water, and also we have so many forests, and those actually are being damaged, you know, with agriculture. They are burning, you see, the bush, and all this is very aggressive for the environment, and as well it affects directly our tourism as well. Hopefully here in Angola, the Ministry of Tourism is together. They have joined. Before it was separated with the Ministry of Environment, but now they are together. Is a Ministry of Culture, Environment and Tourism, which make easier to address matters about culture and tourism when and environment when we are talking about empowering the tourism in Angola. So what I would like to know is if you already have, even there is already a question similar, but I still insist to know if there is already a strategy to deal with African governments. We know that it's not all of them that support strongly the tourism for the moment. Mostly for countries like us, where you know the economy rely on petrol. You know, the tourism is something new that we are developing now. So I would like to know if there is any strategy which can be shared with us, as most of us, we are also ambassador for African Tourism Board. So we could join force, we could make plans together and approach directly government, so that most of things that we use to discuss in our forums can take action, because those are matters that we need to do something quickly. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kuyanga. If it's okay, I let Jeffrey respond, and also maybe very quick go to Walter because he has the experience on the public sector in Africa, and both Kuyanga and Walter are leaders in the African Tourism Board. And after this, we come to an end for the Zoom event. But those that are watching us on eTobo News and our other social media and various platforms we're on right now, stay tuned, because we're going to show that video again with Jeffrey, summarizing everything we had discussed. And then after the event is finished, we will archive everything. You will find it on World Tourism Network, linked on livestream.travel. And we're also going to link it to the African Tourism Board, because Africa has been in the focus quite a bit. So if it's okay, Walter, maybe you want to say something. We give the last word to Jeffrey, and then we're going to end this, continue with the video for those that are joining us on the ETN platform.
Well, there's nothing that beats engagement. In fact, in my remarks, I indicated that we will be in London virtually to make sure that we are ahead as governments meet. But Kuyanga, myself, yourself, Eugen, and many others are members of the African Tourism Board. And we have to mainstream our agenda on climate change, I think, to the African Union, and make sure that it is squarely placed within the Secretariat of the African Union. But even more importantly, I think, and I see and I envisage sessions, dedicated sessions that will group African ministers by region, something similar to the ministerial roundtables that we had under ATB, but these ones with a special focus on climate change and what we are seeking to achieve under this ICTP. So we will take the agenda to governments in the same manner that we're doing ministerial roundtables and see if we can influence policy in that context.
Thank you very much, Walter. And now we give the last word before we continue with the video for those that are joining us on eTurbo News and close this session here for those that are on Zoom. Jeffrey, the floor is yours.
Well, on that latter point, I'm very happy to do what I did for so many years at UNWTO and say, I fully agree with Walter.
Thank you.
And no, really, I think we can have a particular influence in Africa. And I think we could do things like getting some ministers of environment to sit down along with the ministers of tourism, because ministers of tourism don't have the governance power on climate issues. It's in another ministry. And I think if we can find the right issues, then we can make a positive contribution. And if not, the answer to the question is we won't have an African strategy.
Yeah, except that there's a new trust now by African governments to couple environment and tourism. So it's making life a bit better yeah.
And what we hope to do, Walter, with and people who are listening with Sunex Malta is to engage the young people. Because, you know, they're the ones, they're going to be voters in the future. And they're also the ones who are activists. They're the ones who are doing the Friday strikes. So it's been my view for a long time, if we can get those people to be supportive of climate-friendly travel, and we can get travel companies to be actively doing climate-friendly travel, we won't get things like boycotts from them in the future, because we'll be doing the things that they're looking to have happen.
Agreed.
All right. Jeffrey, thank you so much. And this was, I think, a pretty good event. And we're looking forward working with you and with everyone under the new ICTP, and of course with World Tourism Network. And thank you for everyone. I'm going to put open up the gallery so we can say hello to each other and say goodbye to each other, good morning or good evening. And especially Jens in Bangkok, he's hanging in there. I cannot believe it. It's 2:30 in the morning. I hope you get some sleep. But for everyone, thanks so much for attending. I see my friend Burkhard in Germany. He's always there. And if anyone ever needs anything researched or any reference to data, Burkhard is the guy to go to. I mean, there's no one else in the world with this type of collection. I've been to his place one time in Hertha, I believe it was, in Germany. And when you walk up the stairs, you see books, and I mean, you cannot even get into the apartment. He got papers everywhere. Amazing guy. But thank you very much, Professor Snow White, and everyone else who attended. And we hope to see you soon. And please, those that are now on eTurbo News watching this live, stay tuned. We're going to show the video. We're also going to show the video in our archive, so everyone will have a chance to see this. But from Hawaii, I can only say aloha and hope to see you all again, and please stay safe.
And thank you for organizing this, Thomas.
Thank you, Thomas.
Hi, I'm happy to welcome you as well. I want to do three things. First, I want to lay out the framework of the new ICTP as we've conceived it. Secondly, I want to explain why we've recreated it. And thirdly, I want to show how we would hope it will operate going forward. The new ICTP, the International Climate and Tourism Partners, is an SDG 17 cooperative agreement between the World Tourism Network and Sunex Malta. WTN is the online community established by Jürgen a year ago, and thanks to his outstanding broadcasting, a must-go-to news-focused medium. Sunex Malta is a not-for-profit EU-based NGO, established as a legacy to my friend and mentor, the late Maurice Strong, climate and sustainability trailblazer half a century ago. We are happily partnered with the government of Malta, and we're advancing climate-friendly travel, low carbon, SDG linked, and Paris 1.5. We're an activist organization, more aligned with the position of Greta Thunberg than, say, UNWTO or WTTC. And we don't think the travel and tourism sector is going far enough, fast enough in terms of its response to the climate crisis. We buy into the view expressed by UN Secretary General Guterres, based on the latest IPCC reporting, scientific reporting, that we're facing a code red for humanity. And for these reasons, not surprisingly, whilst we will sign the Glasgow Declaration when that becomes available, we'll be supporting Sunex Malta's Dash to Zero approach for net carbon zero in 2030 rather than 2050, and no greenhouse gas at all by 2050. It's the precautionary principle approach. We know we've already used 1.2 degrees of the Paris 1.5 degrees. In 5 short years since the Paris Agreement was signed. And the UN's own data says we're headed for at least 3 degrees as we move from 2050 to the end of the century. Some suggest it's 5 degrees. And life as we know it, possibly even life, can't sustain those kind of temperature increases in many, many, many hot spots in the world. The World Meteorological Organization has suggested that at the present rate, we'll hit 1.5 degrees within 5 years. And we're seeing the results in extremes of weather, floods, fires, hurricanes, and the like. There are more intense and more unpredictable patterns, and they decimate traditional travel and tourism flows. As I said, we acknowledge that the Glasgow Declaration of UNWTO and others continues the tradition of climate declarations of Durban in 2003 and of Davos in 2007, where the industry has sought to come together to respond to this crisis. It is a positive step forward, but it simply doesn't go far enough, fast enough, and the focus on 2050 has to be put into perspective with what's happening on the ground now. We have to have resilience now, as well as a reduction in emissions for 2030 and 2050. We need to have support mechanisms for this. So by combining the strengths of Sunex Malta in climate impact analysis and response, and of WTN and ETN in industry and public communications, we think we can add a new dimension. And yes, beyond the Noble Declarations, but into solid transformation support systems from Sunex Malta, for example, a registry for transparent action on sustainability and climate plans, an SDG 17 resilience network for dealing with climate impacts today, and a strong climate champions community. We're aiming for 100,000 across all UN states by 2030 to help companies and communities as they transform. Add to this the widespread outreach from WTN, ETN, and the Travel News Group, and you create a new dynamic in the mix. That will be the new ICTP. Always green and sustainability focused, as it has been, and now clean and climate led, with well-known sector activists at the helm. And we're open for others to join us. The task is so massive to help travel and tourism transform as a lead sector in the drive for a new climate economy. One of our primary differentiators will be the desire to create a market for climate-friendly travel, low carbon, SDG linked, Paris 1.5 trajectory, with a big focus on connecting like-minded consumers, communities, and companies, using all of the tools of our electronic media-driven world and our websites, ictp.travel and climate.travel. Providing real member value through a very low cost participation, bringing CFT, climate-friendly travel communities and companies, together with CFT consumers. With an electronic membership card on phones, hooking up with an electronic certificate on corporate and destination websites, bringing into play hotels and restaurants who choose to join our community with special offers to climate-friendly travelers to secure and keep customers, and with direct booking so that they're able to keep a larger portion of the reservation fees. With a growing support system of Sunex Malta SDG 17 partners, as well as a global network of young, strong climate champions to be the innovation dynamic in the system. It's an exciting prospect. Jürgen and I are very charged by this. And I'd like to invite our other board members here today, Alain, Walter, Bear, and Vijay, to give their own perspectives. Thank you.